Welcome to Wisdom Journey, the podcast where we explore the path of building an online business from the ground up. Here, I share my wins, struggles, lessons, and experiments so you can learn, adapt, and grow alongside me. I also interview experts in their respective field. Whether you're just starting out or looking for new strategies to scale, this is your space to find inspiration and practical wisdom. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to take you on to this journey. Okay. In this Wisdom Journey episode, we sit down with Melanie Gorman, an SEO strategist with over 20 years of experience, helping therapists, healers, and entrepreneurs build thriving online businesses through practical, human-centered SEO. Melanie's unique journey from therapist to digital marketing leader makes her the perfect guide for creators and small business owners who want to understand SEO beyond algorithms and buzzwords. Together, we'll explore how to define content pillars, create topic clusters, and use AI responsibly to strengthen visibility, credibility, and connection online. Welcome to the podcast, Melanie.
Thank you, Wisdom. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. Uh, Most creators struggle with content direction. They post everywhere, try everything, and still wonder why they're not ranking, right? And for me, I'm curious, what could be the problem? They seem to be doing everything, but nothing seems to be working. You've been in that exact position before you eventually started working on this. Can you tell me? Can you take me back to that time?
Well, I mean, I've worked with SEO for many, many people. So everybody sort of starts there, right? Eventually, like if you start a business, everybody's, right at the beginning. And your content strategy has to really align with how strangers look for whatever it is you're selling.
Okay.
And I think that mindset's really important. A lot of people start out and they name their product or they name their brand and they lead with that. And that is always challenging because before Nike was a thing, Nike was nothing. They were just a shoe company, right? So the fundamental strategy really is, how does a stranger look for whatever it is you're offering?
Yeah.
What is the language they use, the words they use? And SEO is really about looking at the data that says how many people look for this and in what way. So when someone is trying to define a content strategy, there's first a lot of content that has to be created. It's so much more than people expect because a new business online has zero reputation. So that means Google doesn't trust it because Google doesn't know it. It's kind of like, if a new kid showed up at my daughter or my son's school, parents would be nice to the kid because it's a kid and they know to be nice to it, but they don't really know the kid, right? So everybody starts and has to earn their reputation and earn trust. And that is earned through creating content. We live in a world where what actually matters the most is how much time people spend reading or watching your content.
Yeah.
So if you create something that's interesting, people are going to read it or watch it. If you create something that's the same thing that everybody else has, that everybody else knows, it's not interesting because there's no reason for people to take your brand new site or your new business over a trusted business. And that's the gatekeeper to getting in the game, right? You have to spend the time writing articles and you have to spend the time doing your podcast and promoting your podcast and marketing your podcast. That's the hard work we all have to get through. It's a little bit of a gatekeeper because the people who won't do that don't make it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I work with a new business, I often tell them, set your goal at 18 months minimum, if not 2 years, right? You're going to write an article every week. You're going to do a podcast every week. You're going to put content out to the world a lot. And what is going to happen is that content, once it is optimized, and optimizing is making sure there's keywords in all the right places, like filling out all the opportunities to market it and to tell people about it. So on a YouTube description, it's the title, it's the full description, it's links, it's relating things to one another, and it's thinking like how consumers and real people think and then how robots think, right? So robots follow links. So if you do your podcast, if this podcast shows up on YouTube, in the description, you want to have a link to my website, but you want to link to your website. You want to link to your podcast, your main podcast channel. You want to link to Spotify and Apple Music so people can watch it or listen to it on their favorite player, right? You want to give every easy access point to the robots so the robots can follow the links because that's what the robots do. So even in the age of AI, we can't assume that the AI engines know what we want them to do,
Yeah.
right? Everybody wants to be popular, right? Everybody wants whatever they create to be read and watched and lots of people to like it and comment and share it. We all want those same things.
Yeah.
But human beings don't do that. Right? You have to, so you think like a robot and then you think like a person. So why would someone share your content? Why would they tell, another, like a friend or their mom or somebody, their business partner? Like, why would they tell them to bother wasting time, precious time listening or watching or reading something? And so you have to give them a reason. And that's the other part of it is you have to create a lot of content that builds the trust and the brand and your point of view. But then you also have to really think about why people would bother to engage with what you're offering them. So you can't just be a talking microphone. I can't just write articles that are like, boring or don't have, something in it for the consumer.
Yeah.
And that's more and more true as AI has made it easier for people to get to the heart of their questions faster. Right. So when I'm sure we're going to talk about AI a little bit,
Yeah.
but AI is changing the game. Right. And, best practice SEO is still the backbone of absolutely everything. So it's not like that practice and the way we build websites or do articles or, write descriptions in a podcast have changed. But where people are engaging with our content is different. And how, frankly, intelligent people are when they come to our websites is different. So we have to meet them where they are. That's the real shift with AI.
Yeah. Before we go into the tactics and the techniques, you started as a therapist before becoming an SEO strategist. Can you take us back to the moment when you realized that helping people and helping them get found online were connected?
That's a good question. Right. So I did. I got a master's degree in therapy and I was a therapist and I helped. I did all this stuff. It's beautiful work. I love it. Um, there was a moment when I realized that I could help more people if I helped the helpers. And that is the connection. Right. So I come from a family. My dad's a computer programmer. My brother's in computer. Like I just come from a family of nerds. Right. And super, super great guys. And my mom did the same kind of stuff, right? Super intelligent people. But how we communicate with one another is more than just the conversations we have with our family and our partners.
Yeah.
The conversation we have online is an extension of that. So I really enjoy the technology. I enjoy the stuff. My clients hate a lot of this stuff. They don't want to write their newsletters or write their art. You know what I mean? Their
Yeah.
website confounds them, confuses them. And I love that stuff. So it was a natural blending of the therapy world. Therapy, for me really has come down to communication and how people think to make decisions, how they when they're exploring something, is it time to do this? Do I need this? Is this the right, those are all there's psychology behind all of that. So I spent 12 years working for a publishing house in New York City. And I worked remotely. I mean, it was just a lovely job to have. And I got to help therapists figure out how to be online before therapists were ever really online
Yeah.
in abundance. And, the great thing about that was I did all of that work leading up to the pandemic. And so when the pandemic hit, these therapists who became so much of a lifeline to people, they were getting online faster and
Wow.
in more regularity. So, I left that publishing job in part for personal reasons. I really wanted to spend more time with my family. I have two kids and, like being a mom's a real value of mine. And I wanted to be there for them. I already worked at home. I had already done that for 20 years. So that was the easy part. And I started the business I own because I wanted to help more with the day-to-day operations of their business. Like, how do you write the article that connects? What should you do in your podcast? Because SEO strategy is not about a one podcast or a one article. It's really about like a family of articles and a collection of work. So that's why I created the Crownsville Media business that I own and run. But it really is an extension of if I help you and you help others, together we help the world
Yeah.
in a bigger way. And that matters to me.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's why I did it.
Yeah, thank you. You often say, I bridge the heart and the head. What does that look like in
Yeah.
digital marketing?
Um, in the heart, the heartfelt businesses want to, bring about change. They want people to feel less anxiety. They want people to um, feel more connected. I mean, the research is that globally people are more isolated and lonely than ever before. And I think that is getting better now that the world is more connected and we're less stuck at home all the time. But there's a trauma that's happened to the world because of the pandemic, and people deal with that in different ways. So the need for help is really there. So what people want from their hearts, they don't always know how to practically make happen.
Yeah,
Like I have met many, many beautiful people in the world that just want to make positive change, but they have absolutely no business sense, right? They don't know how to put things together or offer them online, or you don't know how people make decisions, like how people think about what do I need? Where do I buy it? What's available? They don't think like that. They just think I want to help the world. And so I help them slow it down and get to the essence of what they are trying, the change they're trying to achieve. Like, what is the thing they want for their clients or they want to bring about? And, so the head wants, I need money, I need revenue, I need clients. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's very, very practical and important. If you're not making money, you're not going to stay in business. So sometimes with clients, I talk to them about the hard stuff, like what do you price your service at, and how many people are paying your full fee? How often do you have to discount to close a sale? So I don't have a problem. I think bridging those two things together, like you want to make this happen, and practically, how do you do that? That's my zone of excellence, right? Because sometimes I have to say to clients, listen, no one's going to buy that. And they don't like me. That's a hard conversation. They want to hear that, right? But if the world, to go back to what I said at the beginning, if strangers aren't looking for what you're selling, right, either it's packaged wrong or you haven't figured out the pain point you're really solving in a way that makes it accessible to people. Because we have to think like our clients. Our clients are the ones that go on ChatGPT or go online or watch a video, and we have to motivate them. We have to hook into their motivation and their need so they say, okay, I'm curious. And really, that's the first step. If we could make people curious about what we do or why we're different or how the money is never the problem. People don't care what things cost. If they really want something, they figure it out. You see people out there in the world driving cars they can't afford, carrying handbags they can't afford, using cell phones they shouldn't have, right? You see people, they will find the money if they really want it. And what people get very stuck thinking about, like, well, should it be this price or that price or the other price? I think you need to figure out how and why someone wants what you're selling and then deal with that first.
yeah,
You'll figure the money out.
yeah.
You'll figure it out. Yeah. So
You
that's the head heart.
you talk a lot about common sense SEO. I love that phrase because it makes something complex sound doable. What exactly is common sense SEO?
Common sense SEO is not getting stuck in the hype of AI. It's not thinking that somehow because we can ask a different kind of question that we don't have to still, talk to the robots and talk to the people in the same way. Common sense SEO is really getting practical about what you want to advertise online and what you're selling, and then figuring out how you need to language it, what words, what you call it, how you talk about it in a way that is unique to you and gives people a reason to buy from you instead of buying from someone else. And that is incredibly practical. And I think we need a dose of common sense right now. I, I just think the hype of AI and the hype and the fear of, oh, there's not enough, there's enough, right? There's enough people to buy. You might want more money, you might want more clients and to sell more widgets, right? But if you're selling something the world genuinely needs and you're doing the very best at it, you're going to sell a lot,
Yeah.
right? So common sense is getting away from the hysterics of it, like, and that really for me started with social media. Social media, in 2016, when Facebook Live went online, it changed everything I'd been doing up until then. Up until that point, we were creating the company I worked for, we were creating all these videos and we were doing all this stuff.
Hey, quick break. Before we continue, I'd love for you to join the Wisdom Journey newsletter. Every week, I share exclusive insights, tools, and behind the scenes updates to help you stay ahead in your own journey of building an online business. It's simple, practical, and built to help you grow. Sign up today for free at the link in the description. Now, let's get back to the episode.
And when Facebook Live came out, everybody became a video content creator.
Oh.
Good, bad, doesn't matter. Everybody created videos. But this is 2016, 2015, right? This is 10 years ago. And ever since then, the message from marketers is there's another thing you have to do. There's another thing you have to do. There's another thing you have to do, right? You need to be on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. You have to be everywhere. That is called omnipresent SEO. And there's a world where with AI, being present in more places can be helpful, but only if your clients hang out there.
Yeah.
Right? Right? Because you can make the best video content in the world and nobody ever sees it because they don't really, your clients aren't spending any time there. So common sense is about getting aligned with how your clients look for your help, making sure that there's numbers that support what you call it, how you name it, right? And so SEO is all data driven. And, that's not the sexy part of SEO, but it's the true part of it. So when you're thinking about how to get more of what you want, you have to think in all of these ways, which the grace in that is all of a sudden, you really don't need to be on Pinterest because your clients don't hang out there.
Yeah.
You really should be on LinkedIn because you're selling to entrepreneurs, you're selling to business owners, right? You can make decisions which tightens up, which reduces doing marketing yourself in places your people are not hanging out, and it increases your time and your energy to do and create content in places where they are hanging out, which will be a net positive to your income if you do it right.
Could you share an example of a client who simplified their strategy and started seeing results?
Yeah. So I have a lot of clients that are therapists, as you might imagine,
Yeah.
right? So I really love working with them. So therapists, for example, should be on directories, right? So directories are, Psychology Today in the US is the big one, right? But there's many, many other directories that people can be on. There's directories that are niched, like you take an insurance or you don't take insurance. So I've had clients that have been spending lots of time and money on things like I need to be on X or Twitter, right? Or I need to put a lot of stuff out on Facebook, but they're not getting any business to that. I've had them move that same revenue that they're spending on Facebook ads or to spend on, writing posts for Twitter or to have a VA write all this stuff and move it over to being on directories and they get more clients, right? So it could be a matter of looking at your data. So looking in your Google Analytics data to figure out so Google Analytics has something called acquisition reporting. Acquisition just means where do people come from? Like where are you acquiring that person? And those reports will say you got traffic on your website from Facebook or from Instagram or from TikTok or from whatever. It will give you data and you can look at that and it's good to look at that often and to say like, okay, I'm putting all this effort into trying to get, my podcast to perform on, I don't know, on Spotify and you're getting no traffic from it, right? Maybe Spotify's not your audience. Maybe you're a small fish in a big pond and you're not going to get anywhere. Is there a different place you could go, right? Maybe as a podcaster, you need to look at a different podcast distribution software. I had 2 clients in the last month move from one podcast software to something called Podbean. And we did that because
I'm
Podbean
curious.
distributes.
Now you said they moved from one podcast software to another. Why does my curiosity seem piqued to know what that other software is? Are you at liberty to say?
Yeah. Well, and so they moved from one person moved from Libsyn to Podbean.
Of course, I thought
right?
as much.
Yeah. So because Podbean's distribution is so much better.
Yeah, so much better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Libsyn
Yeah.
seems to be
I mean,
stuck in the ages. I don't know what's happening. The company.
I don't know either. I don't know. But Podbean has been, for people that need, you need your podcast reach to be larger, right? Makes more sense. And it's frankly, they make it really easy. Like it's just click and it's done. Like it's not a hard thing to move it over.
Yeah.
You have to follow the details, but those are kind of the kind of changes to make. And those changes for both of those clients were made based on a need for bigger distribution. Libsyn, Apple, and Spotify, right? And we were manually uploading to YouTube. With Podbean, we're still manually uploading to YouTube, but we're also getting it on Pandora, which people say is too small. I don't think that's true. I'm 53 years old. I have lots of my friends
Wow.
who listen to podcasts on their way to work, right? On Pandora, right? So part of it, you just have to figure out where your people hang out and not get so rooted in, I do it this way and that's the only way. Sometimes business decisions, when you allow the data to drive them and you're supple and you're flexible with how you make decisions, work, and then you can adjust, and adjusting is important. You don't want to jump into it, but you
Yeah.
definitely want to use data to tell you that it's a wise decision to
Yeah,
do.
yeah. You,
Yeah.
you want to take action and get feedback. Take action, get feedback, rather than just taking
Yeah.
action and say, "Yeah, what's happening?" Uh, let's say
100.
someone runs a small content or coaching business. What would be the simplest, most effective SEO framework they can start applying today?
Well, so they want to make sure they have a website, right? So a website is critical. I know a lot of people think I can have a small one page, two-page thing.
Yeah,
Website really big deal. Inside of AI, but your website, you should have a landing page for every service you offer, right? So you want to think about, inside of AI, how you can give more pages for more visibility, right? So that is the first thing you want to do. And I often deconstruct landing pages. So someone says I'm a therapist and I do individual therapy, couples therapy, and family therapy. I will go in and say each of those is their own page,
yeah,
right? So then write more about it. And you can do this over time. You don't have to
mm,
so you could hire someone like me to go in and fix your website. Or if you're doing your website yourself, you can go in and say, okay, so this month I have time to write an individual page. So now
yeah,
I've got my main page, right? And next month I've got time to do the couples page and this and this. You just take the time to do it. So looking at how people are able to get the information they need to make a decision. The big change with AI is a behavioral change.
oh,
So what has shifted is how we think about questions. And I'll give you a practical example. I was in Dallas, Texas over the weekend and I had to return my car. So I rented a car and I had to return the car before I took my flight home. So I went to Google. So there's three things to think about inside of SEO. There's traditional blue links. So blue links are, you go to a regular page on Google and there's the 10 results. They
yeah,
call those the blue links. That's just traditional SEO, right? So there's blue links. And then Google now offers what's called AI overviews.
yeah,
So you do your search and it will say at the top, it'll give you some information. And then they have the third thing, which is their AI tab, which
yeah,
is Gemini. Google gives three offers. Everything pulls from the blue links.
yeah,
So if you don't have landing pages that are indexed inside of Google, you can't get in AI overviews and you can't get in the Gemini search itself. The same is true for ChatGPT, right? Which are the two biggest AI engines out there. So when you're thinking about, so in this example, I'm driving to the airport and I was like, where do I go? So I voice to text on my phone, what's the address to drop the car off? So the Google links comes back, well, I can't read that. I'm driving, right? That's totally inefficient. I cannot do that, right? So I look at the AI overview and it gives me options, but it doesn't give me an address. I needed to put an address in Waze to tell me where I was going, right? So then I click over to the AI overview and it says like 2424, whatever the address was. And I was like, bueno. I clicked it, I copied it, I had it, I drove off, right? People use ChatGPT and AI, and their average search is like 24 words. So, and it can be ridiculously messy, it can be out of order, it can be in different languages. And AI is able to go, oh, is this what you mean? Sometimes it's wrong, right? It is not perfect by any stretch. It will get you closer with less frustration than having to look at all of those blue links. However, the data says when people do that and so let's say you ask ChatGPT a question and you say, um, I'm driving to the airport in Dallas, Texas, and I need to find the Avis car rental. Where do I go? And I forgot to check in to the Avis rental before. So I need to get to the counter and I want to know, what do I have to bring with me to be able to get my car and get out of there as quickly as possible? So that's a really long question.
yeah,
If you ask that question in regular Google, it would get confused. It couldn't do it, right? The average Google query is 3 to 4 words, right? So 24 to 3 to 4. So this behavioral change that's happened is that we use AI to help us think. We don't know what we need to ask. We're not quite clear what our questions are. We've got some parts of the information, not all of it, and it will help us think through what to do. Once we get the answer, we don't trust the answers. And there's good reason for that because it doesn't always give us the most authoritative links. I mean, frankly, ChatGPT has no guardrails whatsoever on what sources should be trusted or relied on. ChatGPT is a popularity contest, right? If you are talked about on big websites, you're going to be seen and found in ChatGPT more often.
Yeah.
Google and Gemini are different. Google and Gemini are going to use trust metrics and they're going to validate you as a source more and regularly because that's how they've proven to the world that they're a trustworthy search engine. That's how they got to be the biggest search engine in the world. So we ask these crazy long questions and then we go back and we look at the links. So the behavioral shift is we try to figure out how to get our answer. We ask really long questions and then we don't trust what AI gives us. So we go back to the blue links because we know we can trust that. So when you're asking about the shortcut is how many blue links do you have? Look at your website. How much of what you have is actually indexed in Google? And if you have a 4-page website, that's all Google finds. The other thing to remember is that YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world.
Yeah.
So it's a different search engine than Google is,
Yeah.
right? So if you're and if all you're looking for is YouTube viewers, whatever, don't bother with Google. It doesn't matter, right? You're in YouTube. So optimize for YouTube. This is part of the common sense stuff. Be where your content is being consumed,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, it's not none of it's simple,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. Like, I mean, that's why people like me have full-time jobs doing this stuff, right? It's not complicated.
Well, one of the biggest struggles my audience faces is knowing what to post and how to connect their ideas. Let's talk about
Yeah.
your approach to content pillars and clusters. What's the first step in defining clear content pillars?
Yeah. I always start with services, right? So to go back to that same example. So if you're a therapist and you have individual therapy, family therapy, couples therapy, those are the beginnings of the pillars,
Okay.
right? So just to remember just to educate everybody so they're on the same page. Think of it like think of it like a wheel or a flower, right? So you've got the middle part of the flower and then you have the petals all around it, right? The petals are in service of the middle, right? So your pillar, usually people have one main, like comprehensive pillar page. So if it's individual therapy, you're writing that page with the main keyword being individual therapy and your town, right? So individual therapy in Dallas, Texas, individual therapy in Washington, D.C., right? So that's your main topic. And on that page, you're writing about, who you are, what you offer, why you offer it, how to buy it, your process for people to get engaged with you. It's one page, right? It's comprehensive. And it's got heading tags that break up the sections. And those heading tags are not, they don't have like one heading and then like a 10 sentence paragraph. It's broken up in small chunks so people can read it. That's very important for the phone because when people write really long content and they don't break it up with heading tags on the phone, it's like a wall of text, right? And people's eyes get tired and they don't like it. And so they click off. So it's written with the content broken up into sections. So it's linear and it goes through how people make decisions. I'm thinking about me when I look at that. I'm not thinking about you as the provider. I don't care about you. I care about me, right? I care about, I have this problem. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. My marriage is ending, whatever it is, right? So I need to see on that page that you can help me with my problem. And if I see that, I keep reading, right? If I don't see that, I click off because we are so unbelievably self centered when we search online. And we have every right to be, right? Because
Yeah.
it's our time, right? And so I'm looking for my answer to my problem. So you have to write it in sections and then you have to answer are you a provider? Can you help me with my problems? How do I get started with you? And then ideally, like, what does it cost? How do I pay? And FAQs at the bottom always,
Yeah.
right? Your pillar. Your so your flower petals or the clusters, as you're saying, those are made up of all of the small questions people ask along the way,
Oh,
right? So from an SEO perspective, like when I do this for clients, that content is defined based on SEO best practice. So if it's individual therapy, right, that's a hard keyword. Every therapist is an individual therapist, right? So everybody across the globe is called the same thing, right? They're hard,
uh,
right?
yeah,
You differentiate yourself and you make yourself different by writing articles or doing videos that are smaller connections, that are questions that lead to the pillar. So they always link up to the pillar. So in this case, it could, and you want to, before I say this, you want those articles to be high search, low competition. And what that means is high search means you can prove through an SEO tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs that, how many people look that up every month. So that's the data that backs up the reason to write the article or create the video,
yeah,
right? So in the individual therapy, it might mean, is not ever feeling hungry a sign that I'm depressed,
yeah,
right? Or is not being able to sleep at night a sign that my anxiety is worthy of therapy? Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So you write that article, so you validate the keyword, you write that article, and then you have a link in it that goes to your individual therapy landing page,
Oh.
right? So
How do we go about
that's
find, you mentioned clusters. You said clusters are questions, people ask, right? How do we go about
yeah,
finding those questions, those actual questions our clients, our audience are asking, and then
yeah.
eventually making content about it, whether video or text.
Yep. So the first thing you have, if you are in relationship with your clients, is go back to your consultation or your intake call and look at your notes. What did they tell you were the reasons why they came to see you today? Why did they buy your product? Right? That is gold, right? Because if you have those notes, you literally have someone saying, I am ready for this today, and here's why. The question you are always answering is why this and why now, right? We don't buy if we have no motivation, right? And in therapy services, everybody is motivated to get therapy in a different way. I'm a trained therapist. If my marriage was on the rocks, I'm going to therapy,
Yeah.
right? I know it works. I'm in it. I'm trained. I'm totally sold. But if somebody said to me, my daughter plays field hockey, right? If they said, your daughter's really good, she would benefit from a private field hockey coach, I don't know that I would feel as confident in that. Right. So, what's my motivation to say, yes, I want to hire someone and pay them to coach me? So, why this and why now? Right. You always, always have to answer that question. Your notes will tell you what people have said. If you don't have notes because you're new in business and this is new to you and you haven't really been hired by somebody for what you're selling, then you can validate it using a SEO tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs. Now, neither of these are free. You have to pay for them or pay someone like me, like to go do this research for you. But those tools will tell you both questions that people ask, and they'll give you a whole long list of them, right? So, and then you have to understand based on the content you're creating, um, like what you should do. So I'll give you an example. I have a client that's a nonprofit epilepsy foundation, right? So the epilepsy foundation is for a really, really rare form of epilepsy. Like 300 people on the planet have this kind of epilepsy. So they do a podcast that we make into a video, right? That we then turn into, and they are interviewing people. So it's a situation like this, right?
Yeah.
So with every guest that they have set up, what we do when the recording is over is we stop this recording. So this back and forth podcast is over. Then we turn the recording on again and we ask one general epilepsy question that is more about general epilepsy education. And that becomes our short, right?
Oh,
So instead of having to go back and mine through all of this and find something decent that you can cut up, we just do it after. So the editor doesn't have to worry about that. We also have they tell stories of the kids. So the kids that have this kind of epilepsy. So we also have that set up. So we have in our marketing plan, the podcast, the epilepsy question, and then on Saturdays, we do the Saturday stories. So kids stories, right? So you can think about the content you're creating for this cluster based on what you're really attempting to do and where you're putting the content out. In this client's example, there's too few people that have that form of epilepsy. They're going to dominate number one in
Yeah.
search, right? Because they're the population. However, general epilepsy, 165,000 people a month look up the word epilepsy. It's so competitive, right? But they can get higher in YouTube, which is where a lot of people search for information based on general questions like, how do I, and I can give them all these questions, by the way. So I've made them a list, and it's things like, how do I tell my friend I have epilepsy? Or how do I, what sort of paperwork do I have to have if I have a seizure on me so that someone knows what to do?
Yeah.
Or how do I tell someone where my epilepsy medication is so if I get in trouble, they can help me, right? On and on and on. There's so many. And those are little questions that are so impactful, right? Because every person who wants that information is going to look for it. So
Yeah.
you find out what that is for your business, right? And that's your content.
Wow, such a
Yeah.
detailed plan. You've been you've been vocal about making AI practical and human. Let's unpack that. How's AI changing the SEO landscape for small creators?
Well, like I said, ChatGPT is a popularity contest. It's making it harder for small businesses if they believe they have to have exposure in ChatGPT to their clients. So for the small business owner, I'll talk about Chat and Gemini separately. If the small business owner wants to be found in ChatGPT, they need mentions on big websites, or they need to get involved in things like Reddit, where they build a subreddit and build a community. That's one way to get mentioned. You have to have trustworthy people thinking you're trustworthy. That's why I say it's a popularity contest. ChatGPT is kind of like, high school. So if you and I went to high school together, right? Was we're in high school together. You've been in school for, all these years, everybody, and I'm the new kid at school. And you're really popular, right? And you're like, hey, Melanie, I want to be your friend. Now I'm popular because
Yeah.
you're popular. Okay. But if you're the kid smoking on the side of the building, getting in trouble, getting detention, all that stuff, and now you and I are BFFs, I'm not popular either, right? So ChatGPT is all about relationships, and it's all about the most positive, popular relationships where your brand is mentioned. And that is links to your YouTube, links to your podcast, links to your website. And those links have to exist. And there's hacks and things you can do to get links without having to pay to be on CNN or the New York Times or whatever. There's lots of strategies that are being developed by people like me to get people those links that they need, but that matters. Gemini is very, very different,
Yeah.
very different. Because Gemini is fed by Google. So if you do best practice SEO, if your website is properly indexed, if you have all of that stuff, you will show up in Gemini, right? And it's a matter of figuring out what you care about because people are using these two tools to help them think through problems, but they are right now. And again, like this is irrelevant right now. There's only like 2 weeks ago, Etsy was the first company in the US to be able to sell product directly through ChatGPT, right? All of the rest of us have links that go to our website, if the links even work, because the links are often the wrong thing, right? So you get mentioned, but people are using it as a thinking partner, right? So they'll go to chat and they'll say, I want to invest money. I have $10,000 and I want to invest money in something like, what are the most lucrative Bitcoins I can invest in, right? And where those sites are out there and published online can be drawn in, right? So you have to have all of the stuff you want to show in ChatGPT on your website,
Yeah.
right? If it doesn't exist on your website, it doesn't exist at all. For small business owners, the first play is always your website. It's always your online presence. And it's always thinking through you in every place you can be. Like for local SEO, do you have a Google My Business page? Like all of this matters, right? So if you've been in business a while, it's auditing what you have online and figuring out what's good and what's not good,
Cool.
right? If you've got content on your website that nobody ever looks at since like 1875, delete it, right? Redirect it, get rid of it, right? Old stuff is just pulling you down. It's just dead weight, right? And you don't want to delete stuff without redirecting it and do the right, follow through. But if you have old content that nobody ever watches or ever listens to, it's not helping you,
Yeah.
right? And you have to prove that first, right? But after you prove it, then you can say confidently you can delete it. right? So you have to get into a regular content production. Like you're doing this podcast. I don't know how many podcasts you do a week. If you do them weekly, if you do them monthly, like what that looks like. But in the rhythm, content production is what we all have to do
Yeah.
again and again and again.
Um, how do you use AI tools for content marketing? Because a lot of people are concerned what's the right way or the wrong way to use these AI tools to create content and be omnipresent.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, Google has come out in a very black and white way and said it doesn't matter if you create your content using AI. Doesn't matter. The evaluation is, do people read it and spend time with it? So the challenge, so the data is that the last year, 75% of what was published online was created by AI, right? It's huge, right?
Yeah.
The downside of that is it's all created by AI, right? So eventually the winners are going to be the people that think for themselves, right? So because we'll all start repeating each other, right? If we just use AI. I've used ChatGPT almost daily for a year. Okay. I use it in a lot of different ways. It doesn't save me 1 second of time, right? 1 second, right? So if I was going to write an article, I would sit down, I would think through my outline, I would write my article, I would have some editing, but not a ton, right? And then I would be able to publish it. Now, if I outline my article using my SEO stuff and get it ready, if I draft it, but then I have chat update it or change it or edit it, anything that chat does, I have to edit, right? So when people think that they can just write using ChatGPT, that's false. I mean, you can, right? But you must edit it because AI content is so easily recognizable. You just look like you took the easy way, right? So there's all kinds of tells in AI content, even when you say, make sure this doesn't look like it was written by AI. Like you can, I mean, unless you're using something like an
Uh,
original,
uh,
it all looks like it
I,
doesn't
c-
look like it's special.
I can only
Yeah.
imagine
So
how AI is feeling. It's like, Melanie, make sure that it wasn't written.
right. That's
Like, I'm AI. Ah, wow. Wow.
mhm.
AI has really suffered in the hands of humans in terms of what do you mean?
Yeah.
Why you writing like a moron? Remove the jargons. Make it simple.
Yeah.
Not like a
Yeah.
5 year
Yeah.
old. Oh my. Wow. Okay. You talked about we have to be in the rhythm of publishing content consistently, and for most businesses, content is one of the things that they're doing because they need business and marketing. They don't even have that. What's the word? They don't have the team, or even they can't really afford that much. How do they be in a situation such that they create or they scale quality content, but it doesn't lead to burnout, such that they're like, I don't really think I want to create content anymore because
Yeah.
they did too.
Well, to some degree, what I tell people is to get used to, like, you have to get in a habit. Content creation for me, when I first started doing it on a regular basis, I had to schedule it in my calendar so I would do it, right? Because there's a million other things with my business that I could do. I could help my clients, right? Instead of writing for myself. Put it in the calendar. Give yourself, write 3 or 4 articles and get a sense of how long it actually takes you. And then block out, the hour or 2 hours or whatever it is, every week so that you can sit down and for me it is absolutely I can't write content in less than 2 hours. Like it definitely takes me some time. So block out the time on your calendar to do it and then sit down and do it, right? And do it every week without fail and schedule it like that for a year. Like just give yourself, because you have to create the habit of doing it. And
Yeah,
when I used to teach writing, when I worked at the publishing company, I taught a writing class. And you want to understand writing fundamentals so that you're really like structurally doing it properly, right? So you're able to have like the elements in your content that make sense.
yeah,
Once you know that, sit down and write every week. And what you may find is that you write and then your timer's up. So next week, when you come back to it, you're finishing that piece or you're editing that piece so it's ready to publish, right? And get yourself on a calendar where you're publishing 3 or 4 articles on your website every month, right? And you will get better. You will get better through practice. It's like lifting weights, you know what I mean? Or
yeah.
it's any of these things, making your podcast or doing a video. Like nobody's actually comfortable the first time they sit down and turn that mic on, Nobody is, right? They don't know if they sound silly. The last time they heard their own voice was on an answering machine in like 1985, right? They're so uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Just push through, right? Push through and give yourself the grace that you're not going to be perfect, and know that if something is terrible, you can take it down later, right? You don't have to leave it out there in the world forever, but you just have to get yourself structured and scheduled. I've also found that it's helpful. I create writing calendars for people where I literally say, okay, Wisdom, here's your list of articles you're going to write for November, right? And everything is there. So you don't have to sit down and look at the blank page and get confused. And chat is your friend when you're confused and when you don't know what to write about. So you can go to chat and you can say, okay, I am this is the business I have. This is what I'm selling. This is what I want to write about. Go out, tell it to go onto the internet, right? If you don't tell ChatGPT to go to the internet, it often doesn't. It just uses what's already in its database, which is old. So I would say go out to the internet and find the top 10 trending topics people are talking about related to my business, right? Get something exciting. Find something that you're interested in, right? Because you'll be motivated and you have to be motivated to do this. And then, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And it isn't as if you couldn't take a break for the holidays or you couldn't take your birthday off or you have to, if it's Tuesdays, like you can't take a break, whatever. That's life. You're not going to be perfect. But if you're more consistent than you are now, imagine that if you wrote 2 articles a month, at the end of the year, you'd have 24 articles,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it just happens. It catches up. So that is how people have to develop the habit. And if you really, 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 really hate it, find someone to do it for you, right? This is one of those places where acquiring help, hiring help, like can be helpful.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think one other thing, uh, for most creators, you talked about it slightly, and that is, for most people, it's easier to do video. And sometimes
Yeah.
doing video, you said YouTube is like the second largest search engine, and it's owned by Google too. So if maybe article is too much for you and all those writing and all those things time, you might just do video. Say, hey, today I'm going to show you how to. These are the 5 steps on how to do this from A to B, and it's like if you your expertise, you see the way you just dishing out, you do this SEO. For most people, talking about the things that they do is like, it's pretty much easy. But when it comes to writing, for some people, it's
Very
very,
hard.
yeah, it's very,
Yes.
yeah,
Well, and listen, if video is easier, so 2 hacks here. Number one, your phone, pull up a Google Doc and speak it. Blah, 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 blah. This is what I want to say in my article. Talking is so much easier. Then on your computer, pull up that same doc with all of your words and edit it. Or get a paid ChatGPT account. It's 20 US dollars. That's how much it is a month here today, right? So get that and upload the PDF of what you've had and have chat help you edit it into a cohesive article, right? That's a great use of chat, right? So, and then the same can be said for your podcast. Like something any podcaster can do is they can take the transcript of their video, have it transcribed, right? So, and you get the transcript right there in YouTube, right? You just copy it and then upload that and then have that made into an article,
well,
right? So there's a way that you can think through if talking is easier than writing and you want to talk, whether you do voice to text or you do a video like you're suggesting, take what you've produced and then let ChatGPT help you refine that. The brilliance of that is that it's your words.
yeah,
It's not telling ChatGPT, go write me an article about whatever. You're using your opinions
yeah,
and you're actually able to then produce something that is uniquely you. And that is a better use of ChatGPT because it's infused with you
yeah.
and it's not going to be regurgitated. This is what everybody else says about the 5 ways to do whatever.
Yeah, and in that case, it sounds like you getting a ghostwriter to help write your book versus you just saying, write a book and give it to me. That doesn't sound like,
Well, it's not authentically you,
yeah,
right? And that's the big question. Like, when you want to stay, if people listening want to stay in business for a long time, they have to have a point of view and something that makes them special,
yeah,
right? Otherwise, we can hire any coach or any person or any production person to do the same thing.
yeah,
Why you and why now? That's the message, right? I mean, that's the big stuff.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Melanie. Where can listeners learn more about the work you do and also,
My business is called Crownsville Media. And we specialize in website development, content creation, and SEO, right? So, and we work mostly with small businesses, like we definitely have some, I don't know, 10 to 25 employee businesses, but most of it's small business. And it's a lot of coaching. It's a lot of, how do you get your online message to be what you need it to be? So, on my website, there's a consultation button. If anybody wants to talk to me, like I'm happy to spend time with people. Um, so that's how you get in touch with me.
I'll put the link Melanie just shared with us in the description so you can click and go directly to our site. Thank you so much. I can't even pronounce the word so much. Thank you so much, Melanie, for sharing with me some of the SEO. Thanks for tuning into Wisdom Journey. I hope today's episode gave you practical steps and fresh ideas to keep moving forward. If you found value, be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with a fellow creator or entrepreneur who'd love to learn too. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and the link in the description for more resources, experiments, and lessons straight to your inbox. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep walking your own wisdom journey. Yeah.